Alright everybody, welcome back to the shop. So today I have a really neat piece of equipment to show you. Some of you are already confused just by looking at this. So in the 1970s, the US Army experimented with a M7 bayonet that had a KABAR blade. So it has a KABAR style leather washer handle, and it mounts to the M16 family of rifles. So this knife is marked US Canetta. So the Canetta company made Mark II knives for the Marine Corps and the Navy during the Vietnam War. So when you put that information together, it kind of makes sense that this would be one of those experimental knives. Unfortunately, it isn't. This is a fake. Now, that said, it's a good piece of equipment, right? It's a good fake, if there is such a thing. It's very solid. It does in fact mount on my M16A2, and it works just fine. So the reason I'm showing you this knife is because people are selling these as originals, right? So there are very, very few originals, and none of them were made by Canetta. Okay, so there's a company called Sarco in New Jersey. You've probably heard of it. Sarco bought the entire stock of all of Canetta's blades when they went out of business, and then they took those blades and they built these. So these are in fact M7 bayonet guards and rings, and M7 bayonet locks. Okay, and they made these handles. Now again, it's really well done, you know. It's actually a really cool piece of gear. What it isn't, however, is a Springfield, or excuse me, Rock Island Armory produced the original experimental knives, and some of them were issued for field trials, but they're exceptionally rare. So none of those knives were made by Canetta, the ones that were originally made by Rock Island. These knives were made by Sarco, and the problem is that people will sell these knives as being original experimental bayonets, and they're not. So if anyone tells you otherwise, they're lying. So if you see a knife like this, right, and it's marked US Canetta, you know it was made by Sarco. So Sarco also made this knife with the black plastic grips of the M7. So you'll see them both ways. Now, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I got taken on this knife. So it's embarrassing to say, because you know I try to be as knowledgeable as I can about all of the stuff that I do. And when I saw this knife, I got excited because I was just certain it was the real deal, and I paid $300 for it. Now that's probably, you know, $240 more than it's worth, and so I get to eat that one, right? And I'll keep it in my collection forever. It's beautiful. It's in great shape. It's a good piece of gear. To be honest with you, I got this Mark II sheath scabbard with it, and it is stone mint. So that sheath in this condition by itself is probably worth $100, right? The knife was probably worth about 60. So we're still not, you know, maybe a little more than halfway to $300. But so I want to keep you guys from making the same mistakes, and do your research before you get excited, okay? So I will show you a couple of other pictures. From the internet on this knife. So Paul Canetta, who was the guy who owned this company, he told Frank Traska and those guys that run the U.S. Military Knives webpage that he sold all these blades to Sarco. So there's no doubt that this is a Sarco-made knife. Anyway, it's still cool, and you know, I'm going to keep moving down the line of bayonets. So M7 bayonets is a collecting quagmire all of its own. There are just so many. And you know, for me, it wasn't all that interesting because those were the knives or the bayonets that I was issued when I was in the Army. So it was just another piece of stuff that I had to carry around and be accountable for. So there's a lot more variants of M7s, but just make sure if you see a knife like this, you know this is not a real experimental knife. This is a copy of the experimental knife, and for what it's worth, you know, depending on what you want to pay for it, it's a good piece of equipment. It really is, and I like it. So I guess I better like it for $300. So I will show some more M7s as well later, because people are faking M7s, which just blows me away that there are M7s out there. I shouldn't say they're faking M7s. They're faking different variations of M7s. And some folks are faking the really early Colt M7s because they go for a lot of money. So I hope that was informational, you know, that you enjoyed that, and that I hope you don't get taken the way I got taken. And and to be very honest with you, I firmly believe that the guy that sold me the knife truly did believe that it was a real experimental knife. I give him the shadow, you know, beyond the shadow of a doubt. I give him the benefit of the doubt because he really has no reason, except to make $300. He really doesn't have any reason to lie to me, and he knows he's going to have to see me again. So I hope you enjoyed this, folks. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you have questions, comments, please leave me questions and comments down below. I really appreciate your participation in what I'm doing, and God bless America.